morning. Welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. We're broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. And on the program this morning, we're going to be speaking with Steuben County Sheriff Jim Allard. And we have a lot to cover. One of the main topics, of course, and I mentioned it a few times yesterday, the 9th Annual Law Enforcement Memorial Service. And that's coming up this Friday at 6 p.m. So we'll ask him all about that. And, of course, bail reform and so many other issues as well. If you have any questions for him, you can always contact me. And I popped that up already because I have a question for you. If you've been paying attention to the school budget vote, it looks as if in our area, all but one school budget passed, kind of overwhelmingly passed everywhere, except for Addison. Addison's budget did not pass. So my question for you is, and it's a serious question, one that I want to kind of understand, because it seems as if on this program, but also when you're on the street and you're talking to people, and we've had so many people on the program that have mentioned the mass exodus from New York State. So my question is, in all seriousness, this is, I guess, how would I want to word it? This is in good faith. I want to understand, because people say they're leaving because it's too expensive to live here. But then it seems like when we have an opportunity to maybe rein in spending a little bit, we vote the opposite. Am I not reading it right? Am I not seeing that right? So I'll be curious to know what you think. What do you think about the budgets yesterday passing overwhelmingly, except for Addison? And what do you attribute that to? Because I think if we had a say, let's say, in the New York State budget, as voters, things may be a lot different. Maybe not because of the city, but you understand what I'm saying. If people are leaving in droves because of the high cost of living in New York, and then they have an opportunity to maybe just, again, not have as big of a tax increase, but they vote that down. And again, maybe I'm seeing it wrong, and that's why, I'll pop it back up. That's why I want to hear from you and what your take on it is and what your feeling on it is. All right. So that's probably enough about the school budget. But yes, it looks as if everywhere but Addison has passed. Okay, let's get to some other election news, because there was elections throughout the country. This is going to be an interesting one. They're going to try to overanalyze, maybe the word, and that is Daniel Cameron and his win in the GOP primary for Kentucky governor. Why is this such a big issue? Well, you see it in the headline, Trump backed. Because it was kind of a proxy fight, if you will, because you had the former president, Donald Trump, backing Kentucky Attorney General Daniel Cameron. And he is an up-and-comer. If you're not familiar with him, maybe do some research. He has been touted for potential presidential runs, really a rising star, if you will. But then there was former UN ambassador, Kelly Craft, that was endorsed by many others, including, and this is why it's going to be a major issue today, everywhere, backed by Governor DeSantis and some other Republican heavyweights as well. I think Ted Cruz, maybe. Ted Cruz, Mike Pompeo, James Comer, all supporting Kraft, but former President Trump supporting Daniel Cameron. Now, I'm not overly familiar with Kelly Craft. I will say that Daniel Cameron has been on many of our radars for a little bit of time now, so it doesn't surprise me that he did well. But there was, I think they said 12 people vying for that primary win. That's a heck of a field there. So it says a lot about the Attorney General Cameron, and we'll be watching that closely. But as I said, this is going to be a major headline in the news. What does this mean about Trump? You know, they have the phrase, and something that DeSantis has been using for a while, is that not specifically targeting Trump, but that we can't keep picking losers, meaning that for a while the former president's streak on endorsements kind of grew dry. They were not doing very well. So does this liven that back up? Is this a one-off? Those are the kind of questions that the talking heads in the media will be covering this morning and throughout, I'm sure, the day. So let's take a short break as we just are starting off here. As I said, Steuben County Sheriff Jim Allard will be our guest. That's going to be exciting. We've also got, we have a whole star-studded lineup tomorrow. Bath Mayor Mike Sweet will be on the program. So you can always get your questions into me. I love to hear from you. And we'll take that short break. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking on WYDC TV. Big Fox will be right back. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox. I asked the question before we get into some New York State issues. I asked the question, how does it work, for lack of a better question, how does it work that so many people do complain about high taxes and complain about the cost of living here, but then it always seems like when it's up for vote, such as with the school budgets yesterday, that we still vote in those increases? And I said this is in good faith. I want to understand, because this is something I think I've struggled with that question for quite some time. I know at some point in our history in this area, we did have some budgets turned down on a more regular basis. Now it seems with some of these percentages, it's overwhelming victories for increases in budgets. And again, I do want to say Addison did vote theirs down, so there's the one exception. But how can you rectify those two things, I suppose? And during the break, I had just enough time to do it. We did receive a text. Nothing ever goes down. It always goes up. Well, that's true. At what point does it become impossible to afford to live? It will never affect the well-off, and maybe that's one of the issues there. But every day is a struggle for the little guy. I would agree with that, because well-off, they're looking at a budget is not. And again, I know it's about educating kids. Maybe that's the argument you would make. Well, this is about a better education system. Well, I would ask then, to follow up on that question, and I'm not putting words in your mouth, to follow up on that question, has the education system, and this isn't targeting any specific school district, this is throughout the country, but let's just focus on New York, has this increase in budget every year, has it improved the education system? Because if we look at the polling, we look at the numbers, I would argue that it does not help. I know that a lot of people are going to say, well, a lot of money goes to administrative issues and upkeep. Okay, but when you look at the dismal test scores in the state, and you've had examples of a lot of schools, a lot of like regions and things like that, suggesting that they lower the standards to make the grades look better. So it's just a question, and that's why I'm so happy that people can weigh in right here. Let me put that contact information up, because you may be adamantly disagreeing with me right now, and that is 100% fine. I want to hear why, and if I have a second, I will make sure to bring that up towards the end of the program, because we have the sheriff coming in just a moment. One last thing as an update. We talked about the increase in minimum wage. I did not realize it's going to be tied to inflation beginning in the year 2027. Let me just open that door real quick, unlock the door for the sheriff, and we'll take a short break, and then we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us. Hesselson Studio here on historic Market Street in Corning. We are being joined this morning for the M.A. Neal Financial Services interview. Steuben County Sheriff Jim Allard. Good morning.
Good morning, Frank. It's a beautiful day in Steuben County.
It is. It's very beautiful. And I know that we talked not that long ago, but it seems like we have a lot of catching up to do.
Yes.
I want to first start, because we've been promoting this for about a week now, the 9th Annual Law Enforcement Memorial Service at the Steuben County Sheriff's Office. I can't believe it's been 9 years.
Yes, we started this under Dave Cole when he was sheriff. This was his idea, and he said make it happen, and we did, and I'm so happy he did. Since that time, we've created a park with monuments, and this will be our 9th annual service there. And it's kind of a somber service, but the American Legion comes and does a 21-gun salute, and we have kids from different school districts come to sing the national anthem.
Isn't that nice?
America the Beautiful. We have a piper that does Amazing Grace, and we have the chaplain from Schuyler County Sheriff's Office reads the roll of all those fallen in service in our county and the 6 contiguous counties.
So bring the handkerchief.
Yeah.
That's
it is.
But you do get a nice crowd for it too.
We do.
And it's just like the 9/11 Memorial over in Irwin. Every once in a while you need to go to these just to remember and to get that feeling, you know. I mean,
and it's good for law enforcement, because the Alfred Academy brings all their cadets every year.
Oh, okay.
And it's important for them to realize just what is at stake every day they go to work.
And it's important because I know we talked about it in the past, but there's so much doom and gloom in the media, and really, I would say, in my words, maybe not yours, but an attack on law enforcement. So to watch something like that and realize what they're doing it for, why they're joining up,
Yes.
I think is very important.
Well, and we're incredibly fortunate. We still live in an area that values law enforcement. We live in an area that sees what can happen when public safety is not there. And I think that this is just that visible reminder of how horrible things can go,
Right.
and why we have our police to keep us safe at night in
Yeah.
our homes.
And we're going to talk about these major changes to bail reform if you listen to the governor in just a second. But before that, with the media's attacks and with bail reform, and really seems to, as we've said a million times, tie your hands. Has there been an issue with retention and recruitment?
Oh, huge.
Yeah.
Huge issue. When I first started with Corning Police Department 35 years ago, last century, there was 100 of us that sat for the patrolman test just for the city.
Oh my goodness.
This last list we got for the entire county was 5 people.
Real 5
Yes,
people.
5 people.
Oh my gosh. That's got to make it so difficult in your office then.
It is. So we moved through that list immediately.
Right.
And now we're hiring provisionally, and then everyone that gets hired, we hope, can score well enough on the next test
Right.
in order for us to keep them and realize all the investment that we've put into them, sending them to an academy
Sure.
or whatever. It's a bit of a gamble, but it's necessary.
Right.
We've got to keep funding. We just had 3 retirements already this year, so we're
Yeah.
we're outpacing our list rather quickly.
So what do you do to spread the word? Just tell anybody that'll listen, please join?
Yeah. So we obviously we canvass our correction officers, those that
Right.
have shown an interest. But personally, I teach at both the Alfred Academy
Oh, right.
and the Corning Academy, and get our message out there, what we do at the sheriff's office, and look for potential candidates
Right.
that we can get. We have since I've been sheriff, we've had 16 lateral transfers in as deputies from other agencies.
Oh, okay.
So we draw a lot from that.
Well, that's-
Folks that are working other places that want to work at a larger department and have more opportunity to do more things, we're able to bring them in and put them to work.
And I mention it with the bail reform because you guys are under a lot of pressure with the way that the government in Albany has changed the rules quite a few times. What did you think when you saw the budget and Governor Hochul touting the reform to the bail reform?
Well, it makes a good headline,
It does.
and that's about it.
That's it.
I think we will see after June, when the judges have a little bit more leeway, I think you'll see your town and village justices use that more effectively.
Okay.
Obviously, any judge that works directly for the Office of Court Administration will wait on direction from them.
Right. And I know I asked you this last time, but why do you think there is such a fight in Albany against really public safety in a way?
It's what's getting people elected in New York City.
That's what it is.
Sure.
But it's tough.
In
to-
Rikers Island, all of the reform, all of the correctional reform that came down the pike, that's all due to Rikers Island.
Right.
Bail reform is all due to Rikers Island.
Isn't it amazing?
And because there's an issue in Rikers Island that they couldn't correct, they passed statewide laws as if it was a statewide problem, which it never was.
And it's frustrating because you watch when Lee Zeldin did so well in the gubernatorial race, and because again they tell us that no, there's no uptick in crime, and we can see it.
Yeah,
it's not as if, but they want to look over here when we're doing this kind of scenario.
Yeah, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
Yeah, but I think Hochul wanted some minor change because she sees the writing on the wall. If Zeldin's going to pull that, great.
Right, and in polling, that's the number one issue.
Yeah.
Right now
Right.
in New York State, and you see it. So we do the centralized arraignment court. It's to Bend County Jail, and the number of violent encounters we've had over the past 6 months has escalated because again, there's no consequence. So folks feel secure in attacking the ADA. They feel that it's okay to try and effect an escape, and then of course they just have more charges. But all of these things are an indication of societally the lack of consequence that this bail reform has wrought.
So that wasn't just in my mind. It seems like for a while I was seeing that almost every day something happening.
Yeah, yeah.
And so it's just this free. They feel they have this freedom to attack.
They do. You look at the number of resisting arrests we've had has escalated over the last 6 months.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And again, I tie it into why not?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't I resist? Nothing's going to happen to me.
Now, did you have any other thoughts overall on the budget? Anything that you did like? Was that a loaded? I loaded that a little bit there.
You did. So I think we got to wait and see what it all means,
Right.
because they appropriate every year to different programs,
Right.
but it doesn't mean money's going to go there
Right.
or be spent there.
Mhm.
I mean, the state police for I think 6 years had money appropriated for a new records management system,
Yeah.
but it was never
Never.
released for them to spend to upgrade. So you just have to wait and see
Yeah.
what it is. But where they really missed the ball, and I wish until we get a handle on inpatient beds for mental health folks
Yes.
in New York State, we're going to continue to see a rise in crime.
Right.
Because right now we have, and I just had a meeting yesterday with our mental health folks, but the number of inmates we have that are seriously mentally ill,
Mhm.
have serious mental illness,
Right.
continues to rise, because that's where they end up
Mhm.
when they won't treat, they refuse treatment, and there's no place for them to get inpatient treatment.
Right.
They end up in jails across the state. So not only our jail, but every jail is
Right.
seeing a rise in seriously mentally ill folks. And once they're in jail, the mental illness doesn't leave.
No, it doesn't leave. And are you, I'm sure you're trained for that in a way, but it's not really what you expect.
No, they
right?
need treatment.
Special, yeah,
Yes.
special treatment.
Yes.
Can you stay with us through a quick break?
Sure.
All right, we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. This is the M.A. Neal Financial Services section of our program, and we're being joined this morning by Steuben County Sheriff Jim Allard. Thanks again for staying with us through the break.
Absolutely.
So with the budget, we've been talking about the budget process, and what the headlines read is there's going to be a crackdown on the illegal cannabis stores. What are you seeing? What do you know about that? Because I'm sure you're a little bit closer to this than we are.
Yeah, so what we've asked for is enhanced laws to deal with the commercial end of the illegal cannabis stores.
Okay.
That didn't come through.
Okay. All right. Well, there you go.
What came through was more civil penalties
Okay.
levied by the Office of Cannabis Management, which is a handful of people.
Right.
They have no enforcement arm yet. And I've talked to other sheriffs across the state. It's not just here, but typically when you call there, it takes about a month to get a response.
Okay.
So in the budget, it says that local law enforcement can work with them
Okay.
if you can get
Get
them
a
to
hold of
come
them.
work with you.
Yes.
So that's what we'll be focusing on, and we'll attempt it.
Yeah. Of
We'll
course.
try to work with them. We'll try to make it happen. But the number of sticker stores in this area is
crazy.
growing
Mhm.
every day, and they're pushing for a licensed one at the old Leader building.
Right. Right.
And that is going to probably be very good business
Yeah.
for them.
Yeah.
I know the one licensed store in our region is in Ithaca currently,
Okay.
and they can't keep up with the business they have.
Sure.
And but then again, as you've seen and others have commented, any place around that is going to reek of
It's horrible.
smoking
Yeah.
marijuana.
And I think some of the people that were even supportive of it, once they realized where these locations were popping up, so well, this is in our neighborhoods and
Yes.
this is in our communities. So I don't think it's
Yes.
what they expect. I don't know what they were expecting, but
Right. I
yeah.
think they were expecting him to be out like at the old Ames Plaza,
right,
places
yeah,
like
yeah,
that.
in the middle of nowhere. But
Yeah.
that's.
No.
Let me tell you, as someone that
Well,
works
no-
on Market Street, that's not the case.
No business person's going to want to be out there.
No.
They're going to want to be where they can get foot traffic
course.
because a lot of their customers don't drive.
Well, I know when we talked about it too, when they said it was up to the Office of Cannabis Management, I know that a lot of people, there's very few people on that staff. Now, I'm never for adding more people to
Right.
bureaucratic organizations, don't get me wrong, but how are they going to enforce? They were saying in the city there's thousands and thousands of these sticker stores.
Yes. So it's going to be a bureaucracy the size of the Alcohol Beverage Control Board,
Yep.
and which is kind of ironic. I was thinking about that on the way here. This supposed big tax windfall that the state's going to get from it. Well,
Right.
there's been no tax sales
Whatsoever.
up until about a month
Yeah,
ago.
Yeah, I know it.
Yet they've already invested in the Office of Cannabis Management for the last 2 years.
So where's that money coming from?
Yeah.
It's not paying
Yeah,
itself
no,
forward.
it's not.
But that's why I was kind of surprised they didn't put more teeth to the law, because with these sticker stores, that is going to ultimately hurt our bottom line. And
Yes.
as a rule, politicians don't like when you take some of their money away.
Yeah, when
in
you
that
take
way.
their taxes
yeah,
away.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I was surprised that they didn't put a little more effort into that. gotta be
Again, I think it's got to do with the voter base in the city
Yeah.
that's kind of running everything in Albany right now.
Yeah.
And there's no concern for the blight it's causing to the neighborhoods
No.
where these stores are.
Mhm.
There's no concern for the number of impaired crashes that are occurring on our roadways
Right.
because, again, every sticker store is not regulated.
Mhm.
None of them are regulated. Only the state licensed stores are regulated
right.
as to the level of THC in the marijuana and the gummies that they're selling.
Mhm.
So
And the designs.
Oh
I see
my
the
gosh.
wrappers around. I mean,
Yeah,
it
it
looks
looks
like
like candy.
Halloween. Yeah, like Halloween
Yeah.
has happened. That seems very wrong to me.
And
You wouldn't sell kids beer, for heaven's
right,
sakes.
right, and we got rid of Joe Camel,
Right.
so it wouldn't be attractive to children.
Right.
Now this state endorsed, industry
Yeah.
is doing everything Big Tobacco did in the 70s.
And perhaps even worse.
Yes, even worse because you don't overdose on tobacco.
Right.
And we've had overdoses on these elevated THC
That's
levels.
what people don't realize.
Gummies.
Yeah.
So, and it cracks me up because that was part of the governor's message was we should outlaw tobacco.
Right. All across the board. Yeah.
But double down on marijuana.
Yeah, it's so everything seems so wrong-headed. It's amazing to me, and I think you touched on it. It's a great point. Something that seems to be ignored is the you wouldn't call it drunk driving, but driving while
The
impaired.
impaired, yeah.
You don't really see a lot of coverage of that, do you?
There's a few commercials out there. I don't know
Okay.
if you've seen those
No.
where everybody's smoking marijuana and then we can't drive, so we
They
just have to
forgot
sit
they
here.
didn't have. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, yeah. That seems likely.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah, I
yeah.
did see that. Speaking of PSAs, that's what's so interesting to me that the governor now has PSAs like, please smoke our marijuana.
Yeah,
You know, not theirs. Not
we
the stuff that-
promised all these tax
I know.
benefits.
I know. And I thought that because they said a new campaign, and I'm thinking against cannabis. That's interesting. No.
No.
Just we want our money.
Yeah,
Don't go to the other guys. It's like a commercial. The
It
other
is,
guys aren't
pretty
any good.
much, yeah,
That's
yeah.
so ridiculous. But let's also. This is unrelated, not
Yep.
unrelated, but kind of in the same vein. Recently, we had a couple guests about the you partnering with the Opioid Committee
Yeah.
and the Prevention Coalition to collect unused medication. I never heard how it went. How'd it go?
it went really well.
Oh, good.
So we did 2 locations on that day, and I think at the primary location we got close to 900 pounds
Oh my goodness.
of medication, and I can't remember how much we got at the second location. We're doing another one. Boy, I think it's either next weekend or the weekend after. I'll
Okay.
get a press release out on that.
Okay.
But we continue to do them at different locations, not just at the public safety building,
Right.
but different. Obviously,
Make
if
it
you
easier.
do anything in Bath, you got to do something in Corning and Ornell,
Of course.
in Wayland,
Mhm.
and so we're doing that. We're taking the show on the road and
Good.
doing as many as we can to get that stuff off the streets and get it disposed of properly, so it doesn't get in the wrong hands.
Mhm. And that's the wrong hands because we mentioned earlier we have the mental health crisis, we have an addiction crisis. I mean, we've been talking about the opioid epidemic for a long time.
Yep.
What are you seeing? I ask you this every time, but has anything changed? Getting worse? Getting better?
It's if anything, it's getting worse.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a new with the. I'm not going to try and pronounce what the correct name of Trank is,
Okay.
but it's an animal tranquilizer that
I heard about
is now on the scene. It starts with an X, and they're mixing that with fentanyl. The issue with that is it's not an opioid, so it's resistive to Narcan.
Oh my goodness.
So if you overdose on that, Narcan's not going to bring you back.
So who's just trying to make drugs more dangerous? Who are these people?
Well, it's not you and
Yeah,
I.
yeah, no, exactly. I just can't imagine someone in their room going, we need some horse tranquilizer
Right.
with this fentanyl.
Check this out.
Yeah, it's crazy. And fentanyl is so terrifying anyway. And you hear people that don't realize they're taking it. We
Oh
have
my
those sad
gosh.
story time and time again in our area, but throughout the state.
Well, and that's when we see the big boosts in overdoses is when someone takes fentanyl and packages it as a pill, like as Xanax or something like that, with these the pill manufacturers, the local ones, and they sell those, and then all of a sudden you'll see a rash of 30 or so overdoses in our region. It's all because people think they're taking
Yeah.
prescription meds that are illegally purchased. Really, it's fentanyl,
That's
and then it's too late.
yeah. And I know we talked about Narcan, again, there's a big cost to it to taxpayers, but thank heavens it is there, because it's been a lifesaver for so many, especially the people that didn't, again, realize that they were.
It is, and there's two schools of thought on that. There's one school of thought is, well, if they overdose, they get what they deserve. The other school of thought is, if we can bring them back and give them another chance, who knows what they can achieve.
Yeah.
So I'm of the second branch. I'm big on Narcan, and I'm big on, again, we do the medically assisted treatment in the jail for opiate addicted folks that come in, to keep them leveled off and get them into recovery and hopefully set them up for success. We're also partnering with Corning Incorporated and the Workforce New York we have a fellow that comes in and gives classes on how to prepare when you leave, how to do a resume, how to interview,
that's great.
how to best be employable when you leave. Again, my goal is to never have someone come back a second time.
Right.
That's my goal in the jail. We're getting ready to have a meeting with Cornell to start it's called eCornell Inside, where it's college courses that the inmates can take inside while they're in the jail.
Oh, okay.
And we'll see if that works or not. But anything we can do to
Kinda
help
try.
folks, to make them more employable. If they get a job and they get into good housing and they continue with their group treatments, they got a pretty good chance of success when they leave.
That's great. Changing up topic yet again. There's been some issues. I'm throwing everything at you this morning. I hope you're ready. No, these are all, but they're all. I know everybody has so many questions for you. But recently we've seen some issues with school safety throughout the country. How are we set up in our area for school safety?
So we're very fortunate in this area. Under Sheriff McNellis is the chair of the state School Safety Committee for the Sheriff's Association, and I'm on the National Sheriff's Association School Safety Committee. So
That's
we get
helpful.
to bring back a lot of information, and we're set up right now where all of our SROs are trained not only in the SRO, the School Resource Officer Basic course, but also they go to Homeland Security. It's called Alert and Sort. Alert is law enforcement response to an active shooter incident, and SORT is single officer response.
Okay.
So all of our SROs across the county are
great.
trained in this. We did a step further, teaming with the DA and the county legislature this past year, where all of our SROs have ballistic helmets, ballistic shields, and rifle plates to their vests, and opening tools to get into doors that are locked. And many of them have rifles available to them that are locked in a vault and accessible, so that our targets are hardened in all of our schools across the county. And the next step that we're working on right now, we're working with the Emergency Management Office, and we're creating dedicated mass casualty incident responses throughout the county. And we're using school districts as kind of our areas or our regions, so that we have a plan in place should we need it for any mass casualty anywheres in the county. So I feel like we're kind of ahead of the curve a little bit with our preparations. My hopes is the more we prepare, the less we need.
Yes, 100%.
And that's what I'm kind of hoping. We're also working with mental health, DSS, in a management team to look at folks that are at extreme risk of violence, so that we can get them the help they need before they do something bad.
Wow, so you are really preparing.
We certainly are. We
That's
take
great.
it very
That's great.
seriously. We feel it's our responsibility.
Well, now I feel like I'm jumping around too many questions. Next topic. No, I know national news, and something we've talked about on the program a lot is migrants, of course, the border and the open borders. Chemung County issued a state of emergency. The governor issued a state of emergency. Have we seen any issues so far in Steuben County?
No, we have not.
Okay, good. So that was a quick one.
Yeah.
All right, let's change the topic again, because we have just a minute. Here's the one that everybody's been dying to know. How was the unity in the community rally?
It was very nice.
Good.
It was
I saw
it was
you.
very nice.
Yeah.
It was Mayor Boland gave a really positive message about basically all we need is love.
I know.
and I thought he did very well. And Mrs. Verdier always does very well.
She does a great job.
Yeah, she does. So it wasn't heavily attended.
Okay.
But there was a good crowd there, and my message was, I see unity in the community every day.
Yes. And I know it sounds kind of corny, but we talked about it on the program. If a lot of these problems that we're talking about this morning would be solved if there was more activity in the community, more faith in people's community instead of keeping to themselves, and civic organizations, all of that.
Well, I think that's an important part to all of it is instead of being suspicious of local government, be part of it.
Yes.
Get involved. Have your voice heard. And maybe you're not going to get the answer you want,
That's the big
but
thing.
at least people are going to hear you.
And it's not that difficult to get involved.
No, it's not.
I mean, whether maybe you don't want to get into politics specifically, but get into a charitable organization. Salvation Army, I'm on the board. People like that are always looking for new volunteers.
Catholic Charities, Salvation Army.
Yeah, there's so many in our. So get involved, and I think it would help a lot. I'm trying to think if there's any other random questions I can ask you. Who do you like on the Preakness this week? No, I'm just kidding. Well, thanks for giving us so much time this morning. I'm sure, I know you'll be back on again soon because we'll probably have 1,000 more topics, okay?
Anytime you need me, I'm here.
Well, thanks so much. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox just talking to the sheriff after the interview. There's our contact information. If you want to weigh in on the topics we've discussed so far, I would love to hear from you. We have a lot to cover, but I end up talking with the sheriff because I have so much fun. Man, it's interesting when we talk about the cannabis stores, and I don't want to go too long on this, and I'm going to take that contact information off. But I thought for sure when it started affecting our tax dollars, I shouldn't put it that way, the tax money coming in, that they crack down more, but it seems as if they have no real way to handle that. Anyway, let's also talk about New York. I mentioned before the sheriff came on. Minimum wage is going to go up to $1 to $16 for the city, Long Island, and Westchester. And it will go up $15 everywhere else. So here. Wages in New York will go up another 50 cents in 2025 and 2026. And beginning, and this is the point I mentioned, in 2027, it will be tied to inflation. So that's going to be interesting how they come up with those numbers. Also in New York, we're just going to go through a couple quick ones here. New York is building support, Albany that is, to make parole easier for people with long sentences. I should have asked the sheriff about this. If made law, people who have served 15 or more years in prison would appear before the state parole board for a case-by-case consideration. I know there's been some concerns about the parole board and already some parole issues, so this making it easier. The measure is being pushed as Republicans in the state Senate have argued the opposite by calling for stricter parole measures in the state. And I would agree. I know we talked with Assemblyman Phil Palmisano about this in the past, and he'll actually be joining us on Friday. Maybe we'll mention it. Republicans over the years have sought measures that are meant to enhance the role of crime victims, make it easier to remove parole board members, and that's been one of the major issues because you get, it seems like, in my opinion, again, you can disagree, that many times they're looking to let anybody out, no matter what the scenario, and finally have people convicted of violent felonies to serve a maximum term. So another, I would say, question on public safety in New York. And here's the last one on New York before we move on because we've got a lot more to discuss. Remember the COVID vaccine passport app? Now, I think some could argue at the time everything was new to us. Everything was a little bit different, and maybe this was going to be helpful. So you didn't have to have your little slip of paper that you got when you got your shot, and you could go more places. And this Excelsior app, which was kind of a hokey name, but it was only going to cost us $2.5 million. But it was going to help us in so many ways. It debuted back in the spring of 2021. It was for you to show your vaccination, if you want to go to restaurants, live events, etc. Do you know what that $2.5 million has become? Has ballooned to, if you will? It has cost us as taxpayers $64 million for a program that is essentially obsolete as of today. This is coming from Bill Hammond. He said the original idea was definitely worth exploring, and I guess I wouldn't argue with that point. But what seems to be happening is a bona fide crisis opened the door to spending a lot of money off the radar. Keep this in mind. without the usual checks and balances, without the usual oversight of the comptroller. So you have a lot of people, and they're outsourcing the work too. IBM is billing the state to maintain a secure database containing personal information stored with the app, with about 11 million New Yorkers ultimately ended up downloading it over the last 2 years. Boston Consulting Group received nearly $28 million for such work, despite past claims, you may remember this, that they kept saying about the app, it was for New Yorkers by New Yorkers. And yet we were sending $28 million to this Boston consulting firm. So what started as a good idea, perhaps, at $2.5 million has now cost us $64 million. And let me just end on this on New York. But just if things weren't weird enough when it comes to DeSantis and like that, DeSantis from Nassau County, a mistake listing every Nassau County registered voter was changed. No matter what you were registered as, independent, Republican, Democrat, you were now listed on your new voter ID as a Democrat. Many voters in the GOP leaning, yes, it is a conservative area, Long Island County, got their voter ID cards in the mail on Tuesday, and 500,000 who got the cards saw a pretty glaring typo. All the cards say voters are registered Democrats, when in fact, they might be Republican, independent, or, conservative, libertarian, whatever various parties. Who's to blame? Well, they're blaming the Phoenix Graphics out of Rochester, which was hired by the county's Board of Elections. Okay, enough about New York. We got to take another short break. Stay with us. We'll be right back. We're going to wrap up our discussions because we have about 4 or 5, just like our interview with Sheriff Allard. We jumped around on a lot of different topics. We're going to do that for the rest of the program. So stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. I was looking at some of the comments from our inbox. You can always contact me, and I wanted to read a couple because they were relevant to what we've been talking about all morning long. Frank, please thank Sheriff Jim Allard for bringing attention to the mental health issue and the lack of resources to help those who suffer. That's a very good point, and they're doing their best. Upstate New York always suffers from the weight of issues from New York City. New York City should be a separate entity like Washington, D.C. Where was the other one I wanted to mention about? Because I've been asking your opinion on the school budget, and I must have missed it, but the idea is people are just used to everything increasing. The cost, and it's just, maybe that's why they vote for it. They're just, with inflation, the cost of just living, that, well, we're going to vote for it because they truly believe, and I do think their heart's in the right place, they do believe it's going to help the education system. My question was, is it? And again, I just want you to weigh in on it. It's not a judgment call or anything like that. Do you feel that the increases in budget year after year has helped our education system? Just a question to open up as the school budgets pass throughout our area, except for Addison. Addison is the only one that turned down the school budget. The White House and McCarthy's team agreed to meet directly on the debt negotiations following yesterday's talk, so they're going to keep the meetings going. I know the president is cutting his trip to Asia short. Now, there's a lot of pushback on this already, though, hence this headline. Negotiators see progress on debt ceiling as Biden's liberal allies worry. What we're seeing is a scenario where they do not want there to be any negotiation with the Republican Party. Meaning, when I say they, the more liberal allies. I know AOC sent out a tweet kind of warning that they have to take the debt ceiling off the table. But you've got to understand, this is what happens when any party has a majority in the House and not the Senate. You have to have these type of negotiations. And when Republicans took over the majority in the House, this is the way things have always been done. This is how you have negotiations. You have a power chip, they have a power chip, and you've got to use it the way that you can to get what you feel is the best for the country. So this idea that everything's been, we're not negotiating over the debt limit. This is the White House. They have to get default taken off the table. Hakeem Jeffries saying work requirements are a non-starter when it comes to various benefits of work requirements. So I know I breezed through that topic quickly. Sorry. So we're moving fast. That's the kind of program we're having this morning. So stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox. We're back with Frankly Speaking. I'm your host, Frank Aiken. We're broadcasting live from the Hesselson's studio. I wanted to mention this before we wrap up our program. We've talked local, we've talked state, we've talked country. Now let's look international. I know I bring up this topic a lot, but we cannot take it lightly, and that is China's belief that they are already, if not already close to being the world superpower. A lot of people have pointed to the yen, I believe I'm pronouncing that right. I know there's different ways to say it. Their currency yen, saying that, well, no, they've never tried to push that as a major currency. So there's a lot of things that would still have to fall into place. And then we saw this headline this morning: move over U.S. dollar. China wants to make the yen the global currency. China's long wanted its currency in wider use, but last month, as part of a bid to relieve pressure on Argentina's dollar-strapped economy, they started doing something new, settling deals in Chinese yen. Right? Yen. Well, anyway. But that ties into, again, they believe that not only, well, they already believe that they're superpower. I know it was former Congressman Tom Reed who said they believe they have us in checkmate, but we are, in Tom's opinion, just in check. We still have time to overcome this if we realize the problem. China says, this is another scary headline. China says ready to smash Taiwan self-rule as U.S. prepares major arms packages, coming from AP News. China's prepared to smash any form of Taiwan independence, its military said on Tuesday. Yeah, it's very scary, China's aggression, and of course their coziness with Russia. It's still my belief that they may get involved in a way to try to be the peacemaker in that, and again, put themselves ahead on the superpower list. Okay, thank you to Sheriff Jim Aller for being on the program. We are out of time. Don't forget about the 9th Annual Law Enforcement Memorial Service at the Steuben County Sheriff's Office Memorial Park. That's located at 7007 Rumsey Street Extension in Bath. That's this Friday at 6 p.m. Thank you for joining us. Tomorrow on the program, Bath Mayor Mike Sweet will be our guest. I had a lot of fun this morning. I'm sure you did too, so make sure you tune in tomorrow morning starting at 7 a.m. for Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox. Hi, I'm Frank Aiken. Thanks for checking out our YouTube page. We'll be uploading each edition of Frankly Speaking 1 week after the original air date. So, let me remind you to watch the live version of Frankly Speaking weekday mornings starting at 7, only on WYDC TV, Big Fox.